welcome to my channel. Well, this is another rambly one, but it's about knives. I was thinking about traditional knives, particularly slip joint knives. And one of the things I think it benefits from is the slowness. It requires two hands. Over in when I spent time over in the Orient, overseas, in Korea and stuff like that, as a sign of respect, when you hand somebody, something, you use two hands. Like, here's a cup of tea. You never just hand them, a cup. Say, here you go. Sorry, I had a hand model violation. I saw something going on here, and I'm going to be using my hands a lot on this one. I mean, so that's part of it, is respect. The other thing that they're going to have that the other knives don't have is what's in the name, tradition. And I mean, that's why I'm kind of against modern traditional. I mean, it's an oxymoron, really. How can you be modern and traditional? Well, you're patterned after it, but you're not traditional. You look like it, but usually they're going for better material, like more modern materials, more modern handles. It's modern. Just call it modern knife, But this is useless because it's something that's, it's a phrase that's already caught on, and there's nothing I can do about it. Whatever I think people are going to call them modern traditionals, because that's a category that people in their mind will know. They'll think, like Jack Wolf Knives, or some other company that makes modern, quote unquote traditionals. There's like modern flippers also, but what I want to get back to is the attraction to a traditional knife. I think one of the things is it usually takes two hands to open. Now, what does that do? That slows you down. That makes you think. I mean, yeah, you've got to have two hands available. So I'm not against modern knives. I just want to say this right now, When I go out, I usually have at least one modern flipping knife. Why? Because I can pull it out with one hand and I can do it. Why is that? Speed. You're in a hurry. And that's another thing about this. The tradition that it's reminding me of is when I grew up. We got to realize a lot of people are growing up where this will be modern traditional. I mean, this will be a traditional knife for them, because it was tradition when they were growing up that there were flippers and everybody was into them, and so it depends on I guess the time span you grew up in and everything. But that's what I say about traditional knives is you can go back 100 years or so and you're going to find traditional knives that look, and are built just like traditional knives. You're not going to be able to go back 200, 300 years and find S90V and all these other stuff. They're good steels. And, different handle materials like G10 and all that. So that's one thing. Modern traditionals are never going to, it's going to take decades before they're considered really a traditional knife for anybody that grew up with them. So that's one thing. And the other is the slow down part. Sometimes, if you've got to cut something, how fast do you need it open? Well, a lot of times it's just convenient, to pull out a knife. Usually it's whatever I've got on me. But if I've got time, it's like a letter or something, it's not really super important to cut, or a piece of twine, I'll break out a traditional knife just to get, just to use it. Another thing is that you can have more than one blade. I mean, you got the same size of knife in your pocket, but you can have multiple blades. And look at those covers, man. Very few modern traditionals are using bone or anything like that. It's too hard to work with, or I don't know, whatever their excuse is. It's not it's not modern. It's usually, bone has disadvantages. It'll crack and stuff like that. But this links back to the past. I mean, I'm not against speed, man. I like motorcycles, I aircraft, um, shooting guns and ballistics, and throwing darts and shooting arrows. I mean, I like all kinds of stuff that go fast. But with the traditional knife, like I said, you're just linked to something. Your grandparents could have carried, a particular knife, or your dad, or something like that. And you don't see them anymore because people have gone to, these things are more convenient. Really, the only problem with non-locking traditional knives is people don't know how to use them. Once you learn how to use them, like if you keep your finger up here and you're cutting, I mean, before that thing closes on you, you're going to feel it. You're going to notice, whoa, I shouldn't have done that. It's like a back cutter. It gets stuck in something, like a piece of wood, and you're pulling back. Well, if you had your hand back here for leverage, you're going to realize, well, by that time you should realize that you're doing something wrong. If you keep going like that, and your blade is stuck in a piece of wood, and you're allowing it to close with your fingers over there, I'm sorry, we can't help you, with extreme stupidity. Hopefully, getting cut will teach you a lesson. Like, ow, shit, or, oh, I sure wish I had my last three fingers. That used to be good to be able to fully grip something. Now I've got this bionic arm, which sometimes goes crazy and crushes cans and stuff. We're sorry, we received the wrong impulse. You said maximum force. And because you've got a bionic hand, we can exert 350 foot-pounds of force. Yeah. So I mean, that's the main thing, I guess, about it is the handle materials. Also, the sharpening, like, because it's not as sharp. That's back when we grew up, man. I'm telling you, we had $5 knives and stuff like this. Trick knives. What steel was this in? S40V or I forget. You gotta shake it. There we go. No, I mean, all it usually tells you is, hey, this might be stainless. This one, it doesn't even tell you. It is sharp. Now, they're not going to hold their sharpness forever, but, that's another thing. We didn't expect steels to last forever, holding their edge. Again, I'm not against edge retention or modern inventions and stuff like that. I go with the flow on technology, If it's confusing to me and I think that there's an advantage to learning it, I'll learn it. I'll try to learn it, But that's all I was just trying to say on this one, this rambly one, is that it's kind of like a ritual. It's kind of like an association with the past. It also offers you advantages that modern knives don't usually. It offers you multi-blade options. It can be in a small package. You can have just a little peanut, or something like that, or a little canoe. Even the little peanuts usually will give you, or Barlows and stuff like that, will give you the option of 2 blades. And what does that mean? Well, one is your main working blade, and then usually the secondary blade is extra sharp. You only use it for, like, I can't even get into this. There we go. You only use it for really sharp. I haven't sharpened. This is not extra sharp. One side sharp. This side isn't. It's almost like this one's convex and this one's bevel. But anyway. Yeah, you learn sharpening too. So, and there's nothing wrong with learning sharpening, and if you don't know how to do sharpening, it's not, none of us were born knowing how to sharpen. We had to learn. We either learned as a kid or you learned as an adult, but as long as you learn, And if you don't learn, um, I don't understand why you're in the knife collecting business. Maybe for an investment, but you know, it's not that. It's not an insurmountable uh, accomplishment. You know, like for the longest time, I could get a knife sharp, but not hair shaving sharp. I could put a working edge on it, but I just didn't know the technique. I knew that, you know, at a barber shop they had strops and everything, but when you're young, your brain is not forming. Uh, you're not at your top of your game. Let's put it that way. Your brain's not even fully formed yet, and your reasoning process is not good. So you can be around. You know, they could show you, all right, this is how you get a blade really sharp. You get it thin, you have a hollow grind, and then you strop it before you get ready to use it. And that's how you get a blade sharp. Well, you know, I knew that back then, but it did you see a lot of people using razor blades out in the woods, or cutting deer and stuff like that, opening up game? No, it's specialized. It was pretty much for cutting hair. The edge that's that thin and that sharp is not going to be able, even with super steel, to stand up to much. Um, it's not going to be tough. The edge is going to be too thin. You know, you got an angle, and if it's just really flat, even hair can mess it up after a while. So I don't know. All I'm saying is that as far as like keeping the tradition of traditional knives going, I think that people that get into knives and are into flippers and everything, uh, eventually they're gonna realize that uh, what they really wanted was, I don't know if they're gonna, if it actually works out that way, but for me, I started off with traditional knives. I saw the modern stuff that wasn't available when I was young, and I wanted to explore it fully, you know, so I got into all kinds of different flippers, and the price went, you know, from these things, well, not in a situation of case, but like Rough Riders, $15 to $20. Now your minimum purchase price used to be, usually was around $50 if you wanted a decent EDC, you know, flipper type knife. And the companies have come out, you know, with lesser inexpensive brands and stuff, and getting it down to like 20 and stuff like that, within the range. But still, you don't have the handle material, you know, different handle materials available. Again, like I said, you're not linking back to traditional knives. A lot of times were task specific kind of knives, you know. They were designed for, if you do this a lot, you'll find this particular knife most useful. And if you do this other thing, you know, like trapper, or you know, muskrat and stuff like that, all these different patterns, like why is two blades exactly the same? You don't have to learn anything different. One blade gets dull, you flip it closed. And I really, when I first got in there, I was like, why would you want to trap? What, you're losing the whole purpose of having multi blades. Why not a Stockman or whatever? Well, they found that, you know, the long clip blade was perfect for what they needed. These other ones were too short or didn't do what they needed. So they made a knife pattern, you know. It's all in fitting whatever kind of blade into whatever kind of handle. Yeah, you can still go with the single blade stuff, you know, like an all-around spear point. It's kind of hard to beat. But anyways, I know I'm not going to change anybody's mind. You know, and the people that are into traditional knives already understand, basically. They may not understand all of it, you know, but they understand why they got back into that, for nostalgia, or just because they don't need these. Or in a lot of places, it's illegal. It's illegal to have, you know, like, oh, this one flipped out too fast, or it's got a locking blade, or its length is too long. Like, oh, only criminals want this. You know, like the knife is just bad inherently because of its design, which is stupid. But that's the way knife laws are. So yeah, there you go. That's just another little ramble. I always love traditional knives. If I'm going to buy knives, it's usually going to be of a traditional pattern, simply because they still work. You know, they're not useless. Just because it's got 440A in it doesn't mean that it's a useless knife. And a lot of these people that say, "Oh, it's too hard to sharpen," just don't know how to sharpen. I'm just going to tell you right out front, they don't know how to sharpen a knife, and they're trying to blame the steel on their inability to sharpen a knife. And if you're going to compensate for that by going to a blade that, you know, holds an edge forever, sooner or later you're going to have to sharpen that knife. And when you do, you're going to find out it's a hell of a lot harder to sharpen S100 or, you know, one of these high-grade steels than it is 440A or 440C or anything like that. You're going to be sitting there sharpening a lot of times, especially if you're not using diamond stones. You're going to be sharpening, saying, "Man, I can't tell if I'm doing anything at all." And if you don't know how to sharpen, you don't want to learn on a hard to sharpen steel. You learn on a easier to sharpen steel. There are a lot of good YouTube videos out there on how to sharpen. I put some out, but mine are not as good as other people, you know, that just are into sharpening, you know, and stuff. But you can find a guided edge system or learn hand sharpening. I'm halfway. I'm trying to get better with hand sharpening and everything. If it's already got a bevel on it, that's good. It's fine. But it's like reprofiling and everything. I'd rather use a fixed blade system or a fixed angle system, like a Lansky or a Workshop or something like that, because it's fast and convenient. Now, if all I had was a stone and I was out in the woods or wherever, yeah, I can get it. I can keep the knife sharp. I can get a working edge. Am I going to be shaving with it? Probably not. But it would still skin an animal's hide off of it and get to the meat. It may not be, you know, sharp enough to shave hair. I don't think this one is. Yeah, this is more like a working edge. Got a little bit of hair. But, yeah, that's all I'm saying is there's no stigma to not knowing how to sharpen. It's just that know your limitations. If you don't know how to sharpen and you're into knives, I'd recommend learning how to sharpen a knife. And, yeah, you're not going to be good at it at first, but it's practice. It's learning. So don't practice on your more expensive knives. Practice on your inexpensive knives. Even though this is inexpensive, it's got a nice, you know, abalone cover on it and everything. So I might not want to practice on this one either. But just get something, you know, like a simple rough rider. These small ones might be hard to learn, but I mean, you got less blade to work with, so you'll learn faster. But a lot of times sharpening smaller blades is a little bit more difficult. You don't have as much to hold on to, and it wiggles around in your hand, and it's hard to keep that angle the same. Yeah, something like this, the cowboy, you know, the Rough Rider cowboy knife. You got a nice blade there, and it's 440. This one's sharp. Pretty much do everything you want. Not too heavy. Non-locking. It's got a half stop. I mean, yeah, so that's it. You know, I mean, even these little dog. These are dogs. These, the Novelty Knife Company ones. Guarantee you're going to learn how to sharpen on these, because I don't even think it's 440A on these. These are just like some kind of stainless. Maybe 420. Who knows? But yeah, a lot of times those are just for like pocket knives. You have this in a fifth pocket or whatever, vest pocket if people still wear vests, and you whip it out to sharpen a pencil, cut a piece of thread, open a package, you know, or an envelope. Nothing super heavy duty. You're not skin a deer with it. You might if that's the only thing that you had, but you're gonna regret that being your only knife. So, anyways, yeah, there you go. I've rambled on long enough, but yeah, for people that wonder what the lure to traditional knives is, it's the tradition. It's because they're made like traditional knives. They look like traditional knives. They feel like traditional knives. They remind you of a tradition. Modern traditionals are ripping off the word traditional. That's all they're doing. They're modern, but they're styled after traditional knives. So I don't want to slam people that the word modern traditional, because like I said, it's already stuck in our knife vernacular, but I don't think it should be. I think it should be called something else. A modern knife, because that's what it is. You don't have the right to say traditional unless you're a tradition, in my mind, you know. I mean, like, even though this is a new Rough Rider, it's not a modern traditional knife because it's not made out of modern. Even 440 is modern steel. But it's made in the traditional pattern. They're not trying to invent anything new. Although sometimes they do. Like I said, Rough Rider Reserve, they come out with their twist on a lot of stuff, and they're getting better at it. Instead of making something totally modern, like, it's a thin line you're running there. You're gonna piss off. It's not going to be traditional enough for traditional people, and it's not going to be modern enough for modern people in some situations. So, like I said, I don't want to give that particular section of the knife community or a knife pattern any grief, because they're like the trans, of knives. They don't know what they want to be. Do they want to be modern, or they want to be traditional? They're stuck. They're stuck in that ambivalent state there. And a traditional just right up says, hey, I'm traditional. And a modern knife just says, hey, I'm modern. I'm not trying to appeal to either side. You either want modern over here or you want traditional. Modern traditional, I think, is in the middle. And so it's trying to appeal to everybody, but I don't know. It appeals enough, to enough people. And I'm not against them either. I'm just saying it's not for me in my particular stuff that I like to collect, and mainly because of the price. A modern traditional knife like this would probably cost like $300, $400, $500. If you've got the income for that, fine. I don't. So anyways, yeah, there you go. Just think about if you're trying to convert a modern person into the traditional world, try to, I don't know. I don't know if you should even try to convert them, because a lot of times you're going to have to come to your own decisions in your own mind. This is like Saber. This is what we had when I was a kid. All right. Carbon steel. You had to take care of it. You had to sharpen it. It didn't last forever, but it was pretty damn sharp. It was sharp enough to get stuff done. And yeah, I like stainless. I like stainless steel. But this reminds me of a tradition, because the first pocket knife that I bought was a Saber. And it was less than $5. It was like $5 or so. And I had to work for that. That wasn't like $5 was not easy back in the 60s. But anyways, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.